everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. I am Jason Azevedo, your host for this evening. As usual, we are super excited. It's a little cluttered in front here. What this is actually is the town of Blackwell. It is all of the papercraft. You can't see the whole town. It goes for a couple feet backwards. But this is what's featured in our Adventure Box series, which we are live on Kickstarter with only 4 days left to go. So before we go into that, really quick, just want to thank D&D, of course, for hosting us as usual. We're super honored to be on the channel, as well as Vallejo, who provided all of the colors, obviously, that we'll be using tonight, and WizKids for providing us this awesome miniature and all of the Nolzur's miniatures that we paint on a regular basis. If you're interested, if you don't have the paint and the mini in front of you and you want to be able to paint it later, this is actually part 2 of the Cloud Giant tutorial, but if you want to watch part 1, it is live on Twitch. It will be on the Dungeons & Dragons and RealmSmith YouTube shortly, so you can watch that first, and then you can go ahead and you can watch the second one a little later, but enjoy it with us now as we paint through this awesome miniature together. Before we get started here, we have a little bit of a Kickstarter update. I'm going to play that for you real quick. We're really close to our third stretch goal, and only 4 days left, so we want to tell you how exciting that is and the free stuff that you'll get with that, and then we'll get right back to the Cloud Giant in 2 seconds.
Well, you did it again. We've blown past the $60,000 stretch goal and are well now on our way to our $80,000 stretch goal. With your pledges, we'll be able to now implement the trade route expansion into our online adventure builder. What that will allow us to do is to add merchants around the map that you can click on and get extras and add-ons for your boxes each and every month. Every backer over $50, you will now receive a physical magical item that you can give to your players, as well as a physical stat card with all the information you need for that item for your players. Now we're well on our way to the $80,000 stretch goal mark. When we get to that point, you'll unlock the ability for us to add side quests to the online adventure builder. That will allow you to add random encounter boxes, short rest boxes, and long rest boxes to your monthly order as a subscriber. A random encounter box is a self-contained random encounter that includes a miniature, some papercraft terrain that you place directly on your table ready to use, a smaller candle that is a version of our larger ones from our other boxes, and a mini module that will have all the information you need to run that random encounter. Ever have a hard time adding spice to your long rests? Well, our long rest boxes will give you narrative content to make those long rests a bit more interesting. As opposed to the random encounter boxes, these are more narrative in nature. They'll have a location, the sights again and smells of that location, as well as items that players might find there to make that long rest more memorable. An example of something that we would offer in a long rest box is a scenario where your players are walking through the woods. They need a place to stay for the evening. The weather is turning for the worst, and they happen upon an abandoned cottage. What lies in that cottage? What kind of items were left by its previous inhabitants? Short rest boxes would be a more bite-sized version of the long rest boxes. What that'll include is some spice for those hour-long, 2-hour-long rests so that they can get some of their hit dice back. They happen upon a merchant stall. What books are available there? What items are for sale? They happen to be in a tavern. And the short rest box is all about the fortune teller they happen to meet. What does she have to say about their future? You're walking along a path and you happen upon a campsite. The campsite has soldiers that have great stories to tell that ask you to stop for some tea. So for those of you that pledge $200 or more, we will be giving you a $30+ encounter box included in your rewards for free. That will include an owlbear mini, some papercraft terrain, and items that may be around that area, a sound set curated for that encounter with owlbear growls and more, and a mini module that will help you run that encounter for your players at your table. So for those of you that are under $200 now, make sure that you get to over $200 to take advantage of the free encounter box. Thank you again for all your support. Can't believe we've gotten this far already. We couldn't have done it without you, and we're so excited to bring incredible experiences to your table. Let's get to that $80,000 stretch goal.
Awesome, there you have it. So we're almost at our $80,000 stretch goal. Check it out at www.realmsmith.tv. Let's get there together in the next 4 days, and we have a lot of really awesome stuff for folks when we get to that level. All right, here. Let's just go. I want to make sure that we're in the chat. We are live in the chat right now, so make sure if you have any thoughts or comments or suggestions, if you've already painted this miniature and you have some other things that you'd like to share or techniques you'd like to share, please chime in. Anything at all, as long as it's community friendly, feel free to speak up, and we will answer the best that we possibly can. I'm not seeing any chat here yet. Sometimes it takes a little while to tune in. So everyone say hi so that I can make sure that you're all here, and then we go from there. All right, so starting off, oh, there you are. Hi, DPJ. All right, so last week we had a bit of a, actually, you know what? Before we do that, I always forget to do this. Tools. You'll need the Cloud Giant Miniature by WizKids, of course. I have some Vallejo brushes here. Today I'll be using a 0, 1, and a number 2 Vallejo dry brush, some water, some paper towel, of course, for dry brushing and for wiping your brush dry, and then paint palette as well for mixing paints and so on. We also need a paint list. We have Jade Green, Sepia Wash, Glacier Blue, Black Wash, Blue Wash, Dead White, Cold Gray, Verdigris, Heavy Black Green, Glorious Gold, Heavy Blue Gray, Stonewall Gray, and Polished Gold. And there we have it. So this is how it looks right now. She's looking all right. We basically finished her costume area. I think I'm still going to dry brush some Glacier Blue on there just to lighten it up a little bit. Her skin was a little light for me before. So in between sessions, I cheated a little bit, and I went ahead and I went in and I darkened it with a little bit of umber wash and black wash mixed. It might be a bit too dark now, and it's a little blotchy because that's unfortunately what all washes tend to do. They tend to go on a little bit blotchy. The feet aren't bad, but I might have to go back in there and just do some extra highlights in there just to lighten it up a touch, because I do like in the source material how her skin is really kind of dark. I did have it here. I don't know if I still have it readily available, but in the Storm King's Thunderbook, which is right back here, we've got her. Is she here? No, she's not. I think she's in the front here. This is Countess Sarissa. Sorry, Countess Sensuri. Sarissa's the daughter. But that is the material here. So you can see very clearly that her skin is actually quite dark, almost like a charcoal color. And we want to get as close as possible to that color in this. And it'll nicely set off the gold accents. But she's a Cloud Giant Countess. And also some of the highlights on her armor are actually quite bright as well. So starting off, we're actually going to do that. We're going to go in, we're going to put some more black wash over that skin, and then I think we're going to work up the highlights on it a little bit. We want to take a number 2 brush, that's what I'm using here for this, and we're going to dilute it quite a bit, because again, it comes out a little bit blotchy. And then we're going to go in, I already did her legs, her feet, and her arm, her right arm. I'm going to go in and do her left arm here. I also tried some inks as well. Inks tend to work a little bit better, but we're going to try and use the paints that I have on the list for you here. So even though we've gone ahead and we've highlighted a lot of this stuff, we're just going to nicely and gently cover the skin over with some black wash just to bring the brightness down a little bit, because I do like that charcoal skin that we have, especially because she's actually going to have quite a bit of gray in the rest of the miniature. I also don't have her cloak here, which I'll have to go get in a second. I actually left it in the other room. But she does have a cloak. So for those of you that do have this miniature, you'll notice there's a cloak missing from here. I actually just pulled it off, and the glue gave. I know some people were having a hard time with it last week when they said they were having a hard time kind of pulling it off. But it'll make it a lot easier to paint this arm and any of the details that are under there. I'm just going to go over her hand here, make sure not to go as much as I can on those clear spell effects. And that actually worked all right. Okay. Now I'm going to go very carefully into the face here. We did a very careful job. I'll do a bit of a zoom in here. Did a very careful job of highlighting her face in multiple layers and steps, but I'm going to go back in here again, just add a bit more black wash, just to darken that skin down a little bit, and hopefully not too blotchy, and then we can come in and we can highlight it. Oh, sorry, I'm off camera here. Then we can come in and re-highlight a little bit using a bit of a darker tone and palette. So, okay. But this should give the skin a bit of a darker appearance because we want that charcoal color. Okay. So we're going to let that dry. I'm actually going to go ahead now. Before I do some of the skin accents, I'm actually going to go in and start to paint the gold accents. And that'll give me an idea of how all the other colors kind of play on the surface. I think I'm going to still use my number 2. It's a larger brush, but we're going to use Glorious Gold. Okay, DPJ says, for what it's worth, the torso separates from the legs as well. Oh, look at that. That's a good call. That might make it a little easier as well. I don't know if mine's pretty on there, but yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried about that too much because the legs were kind of easily accessible, but that arm was completely obscured by that cloak. If you do have a question tonight, make sure that you write question first, and then make sure that you write question first and then the question, just so I know it's a question here. Okay, so we're going to go in here and we're going to start to paint. You know what? This brush may be actually a little too big for this. I like to use the larger brushes just because you get through the work faster typically. Actually, this ain't too bad. But you can see I'm making really good progress with a larger brush. It takes less strokes, and I can just go with one stroke along the way. And there we go. You can see how I'm just going to go through and pick out all of these gold areas in her bracers and then on her face as well. I am going to switch to a slightly smaller brush just because that one is actually picking up. It's actually going into the crevices a little bit because it's a little too big and we don't want to get it on the skin at all. All right. The nerd YYC says, I think your camera needs to be tilted a little. Usually don't get to see all the paint bottles. Yeah, so frankly, the paint bottles here is going to be difficult to see. We are using Glorious Gold. I don't have the paint. I usually have paints right here, kind of pop up graphics. I didn't have the time this week just because of the craziness of the Kickstarter and so on to set that up. So Glorious Gold is what we're using right now, and I will call them out as I go rather than having them on the screen this time. I apologize for that, folks, because I know that can be really helpful when you're following along. So, question. Sorry if you have explained this before. At times you use the side of your brush, and at other times you use the tip. Can you explain why you use each technique? Absolutely. So, for details like this that are raised quite a bit from the surface, using the side of your brush is actually easier because it's going to catch that whole edge. The same goes for basically any sharp edges that are raised or edge highlights. So an edge like this, I would go with the side of my brush. Here, I'll zoom in a bit here. I would use the side of my brush to highlight that part of the armor Because it's just such a hard edge, you're going to get a nice clean line on that. When you don't have a hard edge, I'm going to use my tip if I want to create a nice tight line on there instead. So it really comes down to preference and how you kind of like to work your way around a miniature. Personally, for me, that's kind of the difference, is when I have to do precision work, I use the tip, or when I can't use my edge. But I'm going to use the edge of my brush as often as I can on higher sort of details, because it's going to catch more, and you're going to have more control over it. If you're like this, you have a lot less control, and there's a lot less sort of shaking if you're going to use the side of your brush. So, don't know if that answered it. Oh, so... Now again, this arm is almost completely obscured. Nobody's ever going to see the stuff in here, but I will know that it didn't get done. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to do it. But I'm not going to take too much time on it, because it's not going to be seen hardly ever unless somebody tips the miniature upside down and looks. Okay. Which would be weird anyways. Unless it's dead, actually, and it's lying on its side. I guess in that case, okay. But you can see how that glorious gold is really bringing out the details around her arm there. I'm also going to go around to the other side, and this arm is seen quite obviously. It sticks out, so I'm going to take my time on this, being careful not to get the skin, and being careful also not to affect all the black wash I just put on there that is in the recesses as well. I want to be careful of that. I am using, like I said, this is a number 2 brush still. It's just a bit newer, so the bristles aren't as splayed as the other one that I had. I got a little bit of overbrush there, which is, I think, okay, because we're going to do a sepia wash on all the gold afterwards, and washes tend to be pretty forgiving when you mess up kind of the crevices. Okay. Got the edge, there we go. It's looking really nice. And this is really making in my opinion, really making the miniature pop. And go through and finish all of these in here. Like I said, we're using glorious gold for the base of all of this gold stuff. Then we're going to wash it with some sepia wash, and that'll give it some shadows and some depth. I love using sepia wash on gold because it's this nice, rich, warm color. And then I'm going to come back in with some polished gold to do some highlights after the fact. And then she's got these magical effects that kind of go up her arm a little bit, so you want to make sure that you're careful not to catch those magical effects. Is the stream clear tonight, guys? I saw it jumping a little bit. Somebody's Cirky is kind of mentioning something about his internet. I hope it's not on this end. Should be okay. Haven't had internet issues over here in a while, so. Oh, just jumped it into the recess here. Just need to be a bit more careful. Don't want to get that skin, or at least as little as possible. There we go. You also want to make sure that when you're hitting objects like this that are wrapped around skin or have recesses like this, that you get the edge too. Sometimes we want to it's safer just to hit the kind of the surface of it, so the top. But you want to hit the sides as well, so that it looks like it's a three-dimensional object, that it actually wraps around it and it's got depth. Otherwise, it just looks like kind of you've painted on top of one surface, but then the rest is part of the mini, or of the skin, I guess. You want to get those edges, which are difficult to do sometimes. Okay, so those are the armlets and all the gold jewelry accents on her arms. There aren't any on her legs, although I am tempted to kind of do the inside of the green area on her legs. That would actually look really nice and balance it, I think, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. All right, so we're going to put this away. We're going to go back into her face. I am going to use my Zero brush for this because we did a lot of work on that face last time. All right. No problem. Thanks for stopping by, nerd. Call him nerd because that's his name. It's funny. All right. We're going to go in here and just carefully base coat the jewelry around her face. I am trying to use the edge as much as possible here, folks. Just the front edge. Because again, we want to be really careful. We do not want to mess up that nice skin that we just did and spent all that time highlighting last time. The glorious gold color from Vallejo is really rich and nice. And the pigment is nice and thick, so it goes on kind of, this is one coat. I'll have the base coat, just one run across the surface, and I'll get the color and the consistency that I'm looking for. It's pretty awesome. Okay, of course this will wrap around now. Wraps around, kind of goes back into her cloudy hair. You don't hear that every day. Okay, you can see how that is already giving her face a lot of kind of depth and I guess interest. Yeah, I know. You're saying when I dip, when I'm painting, I tend to go off the camera. I know it's hard when I'm zoomed in here, but I do want to show you folks the detail of what I'm doing. I will pull back a little bit. Again, we want to be careful when painting on top of the head here, because we do not want to paint the magic effects with the gold paint. We just want to get it where it belongs in this case, because it's hard. It's not like on the clear effects, you can't go back over and base coat it again or fix it. Once you've painted over it, unless you can wash it off quickly or get some sort of solvent or something, that paint's not coming off that clear, or scratch it off or something. So that's kind of the most important area where you don't want to get any paint on. All right, so the gold I think is done for the most part. Oh no, wait, I have gold all around the edge of her. And actually, I'm kind of glad I didn't do the greaves or the gold in those spaces, because there's a lot of gold in her skirt area along the dress here. So that will add a lot of interest, actually. How many of you folks are watching or have been kind of paying attention to the PAX West footage? I love PAX shows. Our first PAX show. See, look at this. I made a quick mistake. Overbrushed the gold. I want to go back in there real quick with a bit of a wet brush that I haven't used yet and try my best to get it off that area. And it worked. I'm using kind of a bit of a coarse dry brush that I have. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That time I lucked out. But right now my gold is a bit wet, so it's running a little bit into the recesses, which we don't want along the side. But I was just started while kind of I was watching to get started here. I was watching a bit of the Acquisitions Inc. Game from Friday night. They're so fun. My first PAX show was first PAX show was last year, Unplugged, and I got the opportunity to see Acquisitions Inc. live. It was freaking awesome. I loved every minute of it. It was so fun. So fun. And this year, we're going to PAX again, and we'll be teaching master classes again. Last time we were in the workshop. This year, it sounds like we're actually going to have our own RealmSmith booth. For the first time at PAX, we had one at Origins. We'll have one at PAX. And it sounds like we'll be doing master classes. I can't tell you where or all the details yet, but we will do master classes again this year, but it'll be a little bit different. We're really doing it up this year, folks, with WizKids and Vallejo, so stay tuned. It will be an extension of our Nolzur's show, so all of the awesomeness that we bring you from this show will be present at PAX for those master classes, so stay tuned for that if you're going to be in that area. Question: before I go, any chance you can paint something with some human skin color? I see your old Citadel tutorials, but you add in more description and detail on your new tutorials. Yes, good call. Yeah, after this we'll do something with some skin. I don't know if we do another giant. Might have a Fomorian. I know people ask about a Fomorian. We can maybe do one of those. I have a hill giant, which has a lot of skin, a lot of open skin on it. But we'll definitely try and do that for you. Get some. I keep brushing over here. Definitely try and get. It's like an eraser. Look at that. Definitely trying to get something with skin done for you. So. Skin's fun. It's a lot of fun. I love skin, though. It's one of the things I really enjoy painting. No problem. You are welcome. And that's what this is about, folks. You know, if there's something specific you guys want to learn how to paint, or you're having some issues with, or have never done before, and you're a little timid to kind of give it a go, and feel like you need some inspiration or some guidelines or whatever, then please sound off in the comments. Even in the VODs, if you guys are watching these online after the fact, please let us know in the comments on those videos what you want to see too, because we are definitely listening. We are paying attention to those comments on the YouTube videos after the fact, so that we make sure that we're addressing all of the questions and thoughts that you guys are having during this process. I did it again. I can't not overbrush in this area. It's just a really tight kind of texture here. But this is working. This leaves, fortunately with the gold, with the metallic, sometimes even when you fix it up after the fact, it leaves a little bit of residue, but it's better than a big glob of gold on an area that you don't want it to be. So that's okay. There's a little bit of shimmery gold on her dress. It's no big deal. There are worse things. Okay. All right. And just a little bit left here up the top. Boom. There we go. All right. Wow, that really did a lot to kind of separate some of that green and gray. It's a theme through this mini, so this gold really adds some delineation and some differentiation. How many other big D words can I think of? But yeah, it's really cool. All right, let's see. And again, these little details in here are for my sake, not necessarily for anybody else's. This is just so that I know I did it, because it would bother me if I didn't. Okay, so the gold base coat is done. We're just going to let that sit for a sec. And we're going to decide what we're going to do on, oh, I just touched it. Oh, and I got a big thing of gold right on the back scarf thing here. Again, using a wet brush, I'm gonna brush it off as much as possible and then wipe it off, which it worked. Okay, let's see. I did some testing with some washes here just to see what I want to do to try and not waste as much time as possible on the show. Let's see here. While the gold is drying, you know what, let's go to the fun cloud stuff. This will be fun. So I'm grabbing my larger brush. This is my number 2. Torre from Vallejo. We are going to start, folks, with a blue wash. Now, I would typically use a blue ink for this. I wanted to try a wash. But actually, you know what? No. What did I want to do? Do I want to use verdigris first or blue wash first? I'm going to use the verdigris first. Yeah, I am. Okay, so we're going to use the verdigris first. And the verdigris is an effect paint. It's usually used, not for this purpose, it's usually used for when you have bronze or brass and it starts to tarnish, copper starts to tarnish. But for this, I wanted to make it look like this stuff's glowing from the inside, kind of like it does in the artwork. And so in this case, I'm going to start on the bottom just to see how it looks first. I'm testing it in the back on the area that is the least kind of obvious. Hi, Weeping Jay. Good to see you, buddy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it into some of the recesses on the bottom of the miniature as if that glowing area is coming from the base and up. And then I'm going to paint it into some of the recesses like so. And hopefully, the hope here, and it's kind of like just a heavily pigmented wash almost. So it is going to make this stuff opaque. So you want to be careful because you know you'll lose kind of the clearness of it, but you have the clear effect kind of a little higher up the miniature anyway. So this will just feel, especially if you keep it in the recesses, this will just feel like a bit of a glow effect is my hope. This is just a test. And these clear effects are pretty kind of, what's a word I'm looking for? They are very slick because it's like a hard plastic, so that's not primed. So you have to watch because it sometimes does not adhere the way that you'd want it to. But you can see kind of what I did there. So I'm doing that on the bottom. Kind of looks like it's glowing a little bit. And then we're going to let that dry there. I am going to do it on her head. Now this is where I got to be really careful. I'll try on the back of her head first because I don't want to mess it up. Just a bit of a test, and I'm going to paint it. You know what? I am going to use a smaller brush just to make sure I don't mess it up too much. But I'm starting from her scalp. Here, let's get in a little closer here. Right there. Starting from her scalp, and I'm going to paint it in between in the recesses as much as possible, trying to stay away from the other areas, but you know, sometimes that's tough. I almost want to light this thing from the inside, put some LEDs so that it glows. That'd be amazing. But I am just doing this along the hairline and maybe a third or a quarter of the way up. So it looks like, again, like it's glowing like that. Do you see that? In here it's going to be tough because, again, I don't want to mess up the skin. And this verdigris is really watery. It's like a really watered down paint. So you want to get it into the hairline, but you don't want to get it on the skin. It should just be in the recesses because we also want some of that glow effect, some of that clear effect to remain clear. So you still get the idea of smoke. But you can see along the hairline what I did there. Question: if you were to include LEDs, can you explain how you would go about it? That is a great question, Oso. I would probably find ways. I'd run an LED up into her head. So I'd drill a hole in the bottom and then put an LED there and run all of the strings down into the base, or all of the wires somehow obscured as much as possible into the base, and then have some sort of battery pack on the bottom. It would be difficult to do the arm because I don't know. What you could do actually is run a wire and run it along the gold, kind of the filigree in her, along her arm. To do that area, again, you put an LED basically right back there and then work it in to the body, even maybe using some green stuff to try and obscure it and modeling it in, or modeling paste or anything, something like that, to smooth it out. That's how I would do it, because you don't want those wires showing, and you can actually make the wires kind of part of the miniature if you can try and blend them. And hopefully this will give the effect that I'm looking for. This kind of glowing effect. Now, verdigris is not usually used for this, but in this case I thought it would be a really nice kind of tone. It would give it a nice tone. Alright, I'm going to do the same. Now this is going to be, again, really careful, because we did all that work on that armor. Don't want to get it on the armor, but we're working it into the base of where the armor meets the smoke, or the cloud. Just along the armor like that. And then I'm going to work it up just a little bit, up some of the recesses, like that. Trying not to get it on her armor. Oh, like that, which I just did. Get a little bit of a wet brush, and there we go, right off. Usually if you get it quick enough, if you catch it right after you do it, you're able to kind of mitigate some of that overbrush and some of those mistakes by just wiping them away with a wet, clean brush. It'll usually sop up those mistakes pretty easily. Now, sometimes it's hard to see the detail in these clear areas until they're actually painted. Which is why we're going to use a wash afterwards, and it'll really kind of reveal and define the rest of it, and then we can decide if we want to put more of this verdigris in or not. This verdigris, actually, I had debated putting it on before or after the wash. I'm wondering now if I should have put it after, but we can always add more after the fact if we want it to be more pronounced based on how we feel it looks. With the blue wash over it. I'm finding that I have to put quite a bit on my brush for it to kind of like take hold, because it is fairly opaque, but to actually give the effect I want, I'm having to go pretty heavy-handed on it. Okay, there. All right, I really like how it turned out on the head. I think that looks all right. All right, and then, okay, so it's done on the base. I'm done around her body. Oh, no, I'm not done around her body totally, because I also want it to be in and around her neck area here as well, because it would be glowing out closer to her body around her neck area. So we're just going to add a bunch of this. Yes, and Oso says that the cape could actually be used to hide a lot of those LEDs. That is a great idea. You know what? Maybe we should do a session of lighting this miniature. That would be great. Do you guys want to see that? We take a session for adding LEDs to the Cloud Giant. Oso says yes. I knew you'd like that. Okay, and it's a bit messy at this point, but we are going to dry brush a lot of this as well after the fact. So again, the clear effects are nice, but we don't want it to be completely clear through. Sometimes when you have smoke or whatever, it's a little misty, right? So that's okay. Now I'm going to paint these balls, I think. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it afterwards, but I'm going to paint them almost pretty much completely in the verdigris, because they are kind of balls of energy, but they would be glowing the most, and we want them to really stick out. So I'm going to paint, she's got 3 kind of magical orbs that she is holding here. And so I'm going to paint these almost, like I said, almost solid verdigris. Again, the verdigris is a little bit watered down, so you're still going to get some clear effect through that. We don't want it to be like completely solid, but the coverage is pretty heavy. And I bet if we were to even put a light under her, that you'd get these glowing nicely from the inside. There we go. Put my finger right on it. Okay. And I'm going to also add some of this glowy effect in and around her hand, which again is where the glow would be the most intense. Closer to the base of where it is originating from, the magic. Now, I mean, I'm just making this stuff up, but we really don't know what magic would look like in real life, do we? All right. And all the Harry Potter fans screamed. All right. And along here. What do you mean? D&D's not real? I posted I don't know what you call them. It's not a meme. It's like a quote this week. And it said, it was like these, like one person says something, it was kind of a quote, right? So it says therapist, and then the quote is, I think that you take your D&D, I think D&D is becoming a problem. And basically, like, I wish I had it. I am not going to do it service. But I think your D&D addiction is becoming a problem. And then it has me with a colon, and then it says, roll the persuasion check. It was pretty good. All right. Okay, so that's what we did there. Basically got energy close to the hand, and then going up from there onto those glowing orbs. That looks really cool, actually, just putting some light through it from above. Okay, so that is all of the verdigris that I'm going to do on there. Sir Keegan says, I like all the tips you have given me so far. Adding another facet like lighting would be cool. Thanks. Cool. Okay. I will keep that in mind. That is absolutely something we will consider doing on the channel. All right. So is the verdigris, I think it's dry already on the base. So I'm going to go ahead, use the large brush that I have, get some blue wash, and we're going to use it fairly strong because, again, it has a hard time adhering to the clear effects. Now, what we want to do here is we want to start in the center, work it down kind of into the verdigris area, but not right to the bottom because, again, we want it to have that glowing effect. So we don't want to completely cover the verdigris because that will darken it right down. But we're going to go through and add blue wash all along these clear effects. And what that'll do is that will tint it so that we have a colored kind of cloud. Now this will take a while to dry, so this is why we're doing it fairly early in the process here. You can see that. And we're going to go around the front. You already see that the front actually already looks like it has a blue wash on it because the back is already tinted. And so it's carrying the color around to the front. But again, want to be careful near the bottom. Don't want to carry the blue wash and overpower the verdigris that we just did. We want to kind of blend it somewhere in the middle as much as possible here. I'm having it come down a couple of the areas, but not all of them. And that's what that's going to look like. See how it's nicely tinted, all of that blue? Just like that. And then when we dry brush that with like a glacier blue, it's going to look really nice. And then a dead white on top, it's going to look like clouds. I hope. That is the intention anyways, okay? Next, I am going to do the hand. Again, we are going to go everywhere. I am actually going to go over the orbs just so we get some of the cool texture in those orbs coming out. But I don't want to get too close to where it's emanating from the hand because I still want that really cool effect as if it's glowing the most intense near the base of where it originates from. And again, to get this effect, you need to use pretty strong wash on here. You can do it in multiple layers. Obviously, we don't necessarily have the time to do that. If you do it in multiple layers, you can work it up a little bit easier. But for this case, we're not going to do that. I probably should have done the other areas first because this verdigris isn't completely dry yet. Okay. But you can see how that has kind of given you kind of a bluish tint to all of that energy. Very cool. All right. I'm going to leave the hair, even though I did that next, I think. I'm going to leave that for now because I want that to be completely dry. I don't want to mess around close to that face. And faces, even subconsciously, are the areas, if anybody's going to notice anything about your miniature once you've painted it, they always look at the face. The eyes are drawn to the face naturally as humans. So that's where I always spend the most of my time usually on a miniature. Make sure the face is cool. And then from there it'll be pretty impressive. That's where all the personality originates. But again, I'm not getting right in with the wash. I am just trying to get half to I'd say 3/4 of the way down, going down a couple of the kind of the deeper kind of divots, but not covering that verdigris because I want it to look like it's most intense at the base. There we go. Okay, that looks really nice. That worked out. Now, I don't know if you guys are seeing that really well, but it's a little darker on camera than it is in the studio, but You can see I didn't get right in there incredibly far. When this dries, it will lighten a bit. But you can see how, and on the energy on the hands, very cool. And then we are going to lighten this up significantly with some dry brushing. Yeah, my rib is still a little, you were saying some of my breathing suggests that my rib's not great. It's still having a bit of a hard time. It's way better it was, but thank you for the concern. I fractured a rib, for those of you that don't know, just a number of weeks ago on a slip and slide. Kind of a silly way to do it, but anyways. Yeah, I just full out Superman belly flopped on the slip and slide instead of putting my knees and my elbows down first, and I've been paying for it for weeks, but it is finally starting to get better. I'm finally able to sleep a bit more comfortably lately. But thank you for your concern. Okay, the hair is looking nice. I like how that's turning out, actually. Again, it looks like it's glowing. Nice, bright, kind of that turquoise color closer to the head and the scalp, and then kind of blending into the blue kind of color a little higher up on the miniature. All right. I think I'm going to dry brush the cloth in front. I'm going to have to get that cloak at some point soon so we can finish that as well. I'm going to grab a dry brush. For those of you that don't know how to dry brush, we do this every session. Basically, you're going to get some paint, load your brush, not up to the ferrule. You don't want to get up to the ferrule because that's how you ruin a good brush. The ferrule is the metal part. But then you're going to wipe most of it off on a paper towel so that there's only dry residue left on the brush. And then you're going to go against the grain. See how I'm going against the grain here? And you're going to brush it onto the miniature. And it's going to basically catch the highest points, the most elevated points of the texture. And then you get highlights. It's a great technique. Use it all the time for a number of different things. There we go. Actually, that looks decent enough. I don't think I'll do anything more on that. I think that glacier blue is enough. Just dry brushing, dry brushing. All right, you can see it there. There. And that dry brush has covered a lot of the gold mistakes that we made. It's looking really nice. Okay. Now, while the wash is drying on the areas of energy, because that'll take a little while to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the sepia wash on the gold highlights. Bit more of a quiet night tonight, probably a PAX situation. Okay, so I am going to take some of the sepia wash, just a dab of water, and we are going to, again, carefully, without getting it on the neighboring areas, we are going to brush the sepia wash along the gold areas, and look at that, just goes into the recesses, really brings out that detail. And I love the kind of reddish, rich color that the wash adds to the glorious gold. That is sepia wash that we're using now, folks. Hopefully next week I'll have my graphics back. Little Vallejo bottle graphics back. Okay. Again, sepia wash in here. all along the detail. I'm getting it onto the green a little bit, but that's okay. It's not really going to show up on that. Like that. And there we go. Okay. Cool. So that really gives that some much needed depth. I'm going to also do it along here. Now I'm going to be careful because again, I don't want to get it on the skin so much, because the skin takes a bit of a yellowy sort of tone and I don't want that. But it's going to be kind of hard to get it on all the gold without getting it on the skin. So if you get a little bit, it's okay. It should just blend with the black wash that is under on the skin in those recesses. So as long as you don't get it on any of the major areas. But I'm just quickly going along here. I need some more. Yeah, sepia wash is really great. It's my favorite wash in the Vallejo line. All right, because I use it for so many different things. I use it a lot, like I said, for gold. Almost always I use sepia, unless I want it to be a bit of a tarnished gold. Then I'll go with an umber wash. But sepia is my go-to on that, as well as like parchment or anything you want to make antique. Now I'm going to be really careful with this wash on her forehead. I don't want too much of it on my brush, and I definitely don't want to get it on her hair, but I do want to get it into the recess next to her hair so that it adds that line of delineation that you get from using the wash. But look at that. Look how that gives you, it's kind of dark. Sorry, folks. My light doesn't want to cooperate here. There we go. Well, that's better. But you can see how, it goes into those recesses and really, really makes that gold pop. Okay. Things are drying a lot faster in here. I have the heater on because it's actually quite cold, folks, which is sad for this time of year. Okay. Because I love the summer. Okay. I might do the eyes next, just because it'll be fun. So for the eyes, I want them to look like they're glowing, just like the source material makes it look like they are. So I'm actually going to go in with some verdigris into the eye sockets. And I'm going to let it go outside of where the eye is just a touch. Just so it looks like it's kind of glowing out of where her actual eyeballs are. So just like that. And then I'm going to go in with white and make her eyeball white, and that should really give this cool kind of glowing eye look. It's looking good. Pretty happy with it so far. We are still going to have to go in on that skin and do some highlights. Okay. This is starting to dry. Glacier blue is dry there. I can probably already start dry brushing some of the cloud areas. Huh. We're getting through this pretty quickly, folks. Pretty darn quickly. Quicker than I thought. Okay. So, it's some glacier blue. We still have an hour left. Fragmite says, "Hi, RealmSmith. Discovered your YouTube tutorials recently. It's first time catching it live." Well, welcome. Thank you very much. I'm glad. And I'm glad you've enjoyed the tutorial so far. Also has a question. That is so cool. I don't. Sorry. Do you have a tutorial about non-metallic metals? It is something that no, I have not actually. There are some really good ones for Vallejo by Angel Heraldez or Angel Heraldez. He does some pretty awesome non-metallic metal. I have never kind of got into that yet. I'd love to try, and maybe I will. But no, I don't have any tutorials on that just yet. Okay, so for this, I want it to be a really honest to goodness dry brush because I do not want to get streaks onto the clouds. But basically what I'm doing now with some glacier blue is I'm going to go through and I'm going to start to highlight some of the cloudy areas on here. What this is doing is allowing the clear effect to still remain clear kind of in the midtones, but it's just depositing a little bit of glacier blue on the edges and on the high kind of peaked surfaces so that we can actually see what's going on with those clear effects. And then maybe when we add some lights to these, then you'll see all those nice, beautiful colors kind of shine through. I'd have to order some lights though because I don't have any on hand. All right, see that? It's really starting to come through here. I'm also going to use some glacier blue actually on the highest peaks and areas. I'm dry brushing it onto her armor because in the source material it resolves to almost like a white in the highlights. So I'm adding a little bit of that just to make it pop a little bit. Again, here, perfect example, using the edge of my brush for the dry brush on the sharpest areas like that. And then again, of course, on the shoulder spikes, which is the sharpest areas by design on this miniature. And then can't forget the back. Like that. There we go. Beautiful. Just on some of the highest peaks of the dress area and on the front of the greaves you can see how that nicely blends, and then on the back as well a little bit, and the top and bottom there. That's really coming along. Okay, back to the clear effects. We're gonna again be highlighting. You can see again it's really bringing out the detail on these clear effects that we couldn't really see before. It's going to make them pop. This is kind of like the top half, or you know, yeah, the top half I'd say. I'm doing the airbrush on because we want to lighten it quite a bit. Sir Keegan says, "So glad I found you guys on Kickstarter. You have been very easy to learn from, and would not have found you without that." Oh, that's awesome. I would have waited till my nephew had time to teach me otherwise. Well, thanks so much, man. Our Kickstarter, it's going nuts. It's we're so blessed and thankful that we've gotten as far as we have on it. We're nearing our $80,000 goal with only 4 days left, and we have a really cool unlock at the $80,000 level. So if you guys haven't checked it out yet, you just need to. Once we get there to the $80,000 level, you just need to back us at $200 or more, and you get a bonus $30 value random encounter box to go with the rest of your rewards, which is really exciting. And then we'll be launching those to the public sometime in the near future. But reaching that goal has allowed us to start development on that area of our business, so we're very excited. Very excited. Okay, again, the energy on the hand, same thing. The dry brushing is really bringing out. And remember, these are energy, but they're also clouds, so we want to make sure that they look kind of wispy and fluffy, and not too dark. So, okay, and then a little glacier blue on the base. Oh, too much. See that? See what I did there? I had too much, and it turned into a overbrush, we call it, where you're brushing, you know, paint still. You're using the dry brush technique, but you're brushing paint over the surface, and we don't want that for this. There's some cases overbrushing makes sense. For this, we need to be fairly subtle, so. But again, we want these clouds to look wispy, which these bottom ones are starting to. Getting a bit of a sore throat, folks. Hoping I'm not getting sick. With the weather changing, this is the time of year it tends to happen. We're near Toronto in Canada, so it's already starting to cool down, which is unfortunate. I love the summer. Not a huge fan of the winter, which begs the question, why do I live in Canada? Okay, so finally we're going to use some dead white. And again, same techniques. It's also the long weekend, right? In Canada. I'm pretty sure it's a long weekend in the States as well. With the dead white, I am just hitting the edges, folks. Just the top edges. Just getting so again we're getting that fluffy kind of cloud approach on the top edges of this thing, and that'll kind of close it off nicely. But what a difference adding that dead white makes. There we go. That's a fluffy cow giant. Again, if we were able to light it from inside, that would be pretty stellar. Wow, that texture really comes out on that hair. It's really nice. There we go. And then on the orbs, we definitely want to get some of this on the orbs so that they really pop. But again, just don't want to hit too much on the dead white, because if you go all the way down and hit all of it and do a dry brush all over the place, you're going to lose the gradient and the build to the highlight. And then she's looking a little icy, maybe, but that's okay. And then again, get this dead white. Look at that. You can really see the detail on those clear effects now. And they're still fairly clear. You're still seeing light pass through them. And then if we light them from the inside, they should light really nicely. Okay. That is it for the cloudy areas, I would say. I mean, I could maybe even go in there and do like wisps and stuff, but I really like how the dry brushing has accomplished what I was trying to do. Very cool. Okay. I'm going to go in now with some white. Question from Oso. What is a glaze? I have heard this term in a couple of different videos, but it seems to mean a wash to some people and more of an ink to others. Is it a particular technique, product, more of a consistency thing? Yeah, you're going to get different answers from different people on that. For me, a glaze is typically, you can buy glazes, and they are typically, I would say, more like inks, not washes. A glaze is intended, in my opinion, to change the color of a surface. So just like an ink is used to tone a color of a surface, washes are used to create shadow. They tend to change the color of the surface by accident almost, but the idea is that they're supposed to seep into the recesses and create shadow. And that's the difference to me. Glazes and inks, I find that glazes are actually created using existing acrylic paint. So you take one of your paints, you water it down a lot, and that becomes a glaze. That, to me, is the difference. Other people in the chat can chime in as well, but for me, that's the idea. Okay, so we're going to go super close in the eye here. When I do eyes, I'm going to rest my fingers on the edge of somewhere that is nice and solid. So like this. Just so I have a lot of base, or a solid base so I'm not shaking a lot, like this. And then I'm going to come in from the edge. Now let's see if I can actually see where the eyeball is. But I don't want to color the whole thing. I just want to color in the center because we want it to look like they're glowing. So we want to keep that. We want to keep that verdigris in the kind of area around it, and just in the center there. That one's a better one. But those are her glowing eyes. That worked out really nice, actually. I'm very happy with that. Okay. You can see that her eyes almost stand out more than anything else on the miniature. Thank you so much. Also says thank you so much. I've been learning a ton from your videos and I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Or woman or whatever. I don't know who you guys are other than your handles for the most part. So I just appreciate you guys watching. Okay, so eyes are done. What I am going to do actually is take a little bit of this jade green because I didn't get a chance last time to highlight her lips. So I'm going to dip in here. And I am going to just highlight her lip. See what I did there is I highlighted the top peaks and just on the bottom. There, that really stands out now. I'm actually feeling maybe like I don't need to touch the skin so much. I could go back in. Not super happy. It's kind of blotchy around the leg, as you can see, and her face is a little blotchy. But I'd have to really carefully, I'd have to really be careful to match that skin tone, because then I'd have to keep going back and forth between skin tones. I'm not sure I want to spend that kind of effort on this miniature. Well, while I'm thinking about that, I will focus on we're going to use polished gold, and we're just going to highlight all the gold areas. It's quite a bit lighter than glorious gold. I'm going to use my, I lost my strap here, folks. I don't know what happened here. Oh, the thing unscrewed. Look at that. I'm just falling apart. This is live. This is live Twitch. There we go. all fixed. There we go. Okay, so back to business here. I'm using polished gold, touch of water, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to highlight fairly closely here. Just going to highlight some of the edges of some of this gold here, just to bring out the gold a bit, add some highlights in some areas. See, it's very, very subtle. Very, very, very subtle here. Don't want to create too much. It's very subtle. I forgot to turn off the air conditioning. Hopefully that's not too loud for you folks. It was so cold, but I guess my heater down here is starting to heat the rest of the house. So I hope that's not too loud. Let me know if it is, and I can go turn it off. Okay. Should turn off in a bit. All right, and then on here, I'm going to put a line on the top edge of all of the gold areas, and only the top edge where the light would hit, leaving the bottom edge, and I'm using the edge of my brush, you can see, to catch those edges carefully, just to add some cool highlights. Whoa, that was a big mistake. You guys probably saw that happen. All right. Like I said, tell me if that, if my air conditioning kicking on here is distracting. We can go deal with that. And then I'm also going to do polished gold using the edge of my brush along the edge of her skirt here on the top and on the bottom, being careful not to get it on her clothing as much as possible. Hey Ink, it's good to see you, man. Okay. All right, and that's that. On the flip side, and over here as well. Okay, folks, we are close to done. The main miniature. This is great. This is really great. Okay. Well, actually, might get to the base this time. So there she is so far. We've got the cloud effects done. We've got her armor and her clothing done. We've got her glowing eyes done. And all of the gold areas done as well. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to go grab her. Thank you very much, Oso. I'm going to step away just for a second, which I never do in this show. And I'm just going to go and grab the cape here that I left in the studio. Sorry. Do I really need to sing the Jeopardy theme? Let's be honest. Now, I'm hoping, there it is. All right, coming back. Coming back. All right. Ooh. Hello. I'm back. That wasn't too bad. Fairly painless. Okay. So, cloak time. It is cloak time. Okay, cloak should be easy now. We've pulled it off, like I said. If you're not able to pull it off, just give it a bit of elbow grease. It should come off. And then it's just going to fit nicely back under here. Or at least it should. Like that. Look at that. Perfect fit. And then I'll glue it back in after I've painted it. And that's how she looks with the cloak. And then she has a cool painted arm under it, which at first I was worried about how I was going to do. So, as a base coat, we are going to use heavy blue-gray for the cloak. Now the extra opaque paints, so all the paints that say heavy on them usually with Vallejo, heavy blue-gray, all that stuff, these are base paints. They go on in one coat. They are awesome for that reason. And this color is going to be quite close to the primer color, but that's okay. You know what? I'm going to switch to my biggest brush that I've got, which is actually a dry brush, but it's going to help us get through this cloak a lot faster. Look at that. I need to hit Vallejo up for some larger brushes for base coating. But we're just going to go heavy blue-gray over the whole thing. A little boring at first, but it's great. How many of you folks out there have played or have been playing Storm King's Thunder campaign? This mini is from Storm King's Thunder. Like I said before, it represents Countess Censuri, the Cloud Giant Countess, who has come to Maelstrom. Maelstrom being where King Hecaton, the Storm Giant King, lives. She is visiting his court when you see her. Not too many spoilers. I don't want to give any more spoilers for those of you that are playing it, in the middle of it. There is also a pre-painted version of this miniature as well. The exact mini WizKids has in their blind boxes for Storm Kings. So you may already have her. Oh, Dragon Heist. Very nice. Fragmite says that he's playing Dragon Heist. I haven't had a chance to play Dragon Heist yet. I've heard it's great, and I'd love to give it a go. But we are currently switching our live stream games over to our own homebrew world that our adventure box modules take place in. Which, again, for those of you that wonder, this is the town of Blackwell. We played a stream. You can check out the stream on our YouTube channel and our Twitch channel. But anyways, we played a stream with our noobs, walking them through episode 5, or box 5, I should say, of our first adventure in our adventure boxes. So if you're part of our Kickstarter or want to be part of the Kickstarter or haven't heard of it and want to kind of see how our adventures play and read and what you get in the boxes and stuff, those Tales from the Shattered Shield sessions, it's called Tales from the Shattered Shield sessions on our YouTube page, is the way to kind of get a good feel for what we offer in our adventure boxes. It's a lot of fun. But they're playthroughs of the encounters, the modules. Look at that. Front is done. Again, looks pretty much the same on camera as it did. It's just a little bit darker than the primer that is on these miniatures. Now I'm going to be careful not to put paint where it's going to where I'm going to adhere the glue onto the mini, because I don't want it to just adhere to the glue to the paint layer and then not and then kind of pull off or whatever, because it's not adhered to the plastic. Now the primer, it will adhere to the primer, of course, but the primer is secured much longer than my paint has, and it's much more resilient than the paint is. So there's no reason to paint, or sorry, there's no reason to paint into that recess, or we'll be reattaching that cloak. I'm totally off camera here, just in my own world, just base coating. I'm going through this really quickly, using a brush I don't care about too much. It's one of my dry brushes, so it gets beat up anyways. And I'm just working this base coat over the whole thing. Just like that. All right. Cool. We're going to let that dry for a sec. Why not? I got a little bit of paint into this ferrule. This dry brush has almost had it. It's pretty beat up, but that's okay. Curse of Strahd is so good. Oh, I'd love to do a Ravenloft campaign. Love, back in the day, it was my favorite. And Oxa says, Papa Fox Tacos, hello. Running Princes of the Apocalypse. Very cool too. Very cool. All right. Good stuff. This is going to take a couple minutes to dry here. So we're just going to kind of let it. As it dries, I'm seeing some areas I missed, which always happens. I think we're going to bring out our trusty fan to try and speed this process up. What do you think? Actually, you know what? I don't really need to use the fan because we can base coat the base. I think, see folks, I don't have, probably should have done the base a different color so that it's not gray, but we don't have a different color at the table, so I am going to do it gray. Which is okay. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use cold gray as a base coat. It's darker than heavy blue gray by a bit, and it's a bit of an earthier tone. So I'm going to use that instead, just so it gives it a bit more. See, you can see that it's a bit different tone. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little washed out, but again, being careful not to get it onto the clear effect bits at the bottom on the base. We're just going to go around all these rocks. And I may actually do a bit of a sepia and black wash for this mix so that it gives it contrast to the rest of the mini that is all mostly grays and blues and cool colors. There we go. Yeah, that was a good call. Cold gray is going to be good. This, she would probably be on some mountaintop. Anyways, I don't know how much dirt and mud would be up there. Imagine a cloud giant would be. She'd stop at some sort of outpost, perhaps. Hop out of her cloud castle. Looking for supplies or tracking someone down. Doing some research. Something. Okay. Is it a long weekend in the States as well? For those of you from south of the border from us? I should know this. I really should. Here we go. Weekend, what's a weekend? Papa Taco says. That's hilarious. Papa Fox Tacos. That was my thought too. That's good. Yeah, I work all weekends too usually. I'm working now. All right. I'm just going to rest her on here. She doesn't want to seem to... Okay, this is still pretty wet, so we are going to use the fan now. And just sit here for a bit. Thought better than the technique I used to use. This is actually quite quick. Yep, holiday week and Labor Day, that's right. Which is probably why it's a lot more quiet on the channel tonight. People are probably away. Don't have to be back at work till Tuesday. My job does not come with benefits. Well, hanging out with you folks is the benefit. But deployments. Sir Keegan, I'm assuming that you are in the service. Army? So cheesy. That's me though. Dad jokes and cheesy. So you got to deal with it. You get decent painting tips, but you got to deal with the cheese and the dad jokes. It's just the way it is around here. Army, cool. Are you in on deployment now? Are you overseas? Well, welcome, and thank you for your service. That's pretty amazing. And I'm glad that we can entertain and educate and all that stuff while you're on deployment. That's great. It's an honor. Oh, jeez. It's Kevin. I was like, there's a lot of parallels here to someone I know. Sir Keegan is Kevin from, he's actually a collaborator or moderator on our Kickstarter. He came on and he backed all kinds of things for us, which was amazing. And then because he loved our channel so much and he started just kind of supporting the channel and answering questions for us when we couldn't get to it and so on, or when we were a little long to answer, that we made him a moderator on our Kickstarter. Now he's doing wonderful things. So thanks, Lego. Appreciate it. And welcome. All right, blue wash, which is the same that we did. We are doing the same thing that we did on the fabric on the front of her clothing. That kind of scarfy area in the front. We are doing the same thing back here. So it's going to be an all over wash of blue wash into the recess as it goes, and all of that fun stuff. I actually didn't know you were on deployment, Lego. I thought you were just chilling. I thought you were off. That's awesome. Man, so much respect for the armed forces. Question: have you ever worked with Vallejo liquid mask? I've heard interesting things. I haven't yet. I have a bottle of it. I haven't used it yet. I haven't really had a need to use it yet. I use their air paints, which are awesome, but I have not used the liquid mask. What have you heard, and what are your thoughts on it? I'd love to hear. And for those of you that don't know, the liquid mask is used for basically painting almost like a plasticky sort of film over an area of a miniature, and then spray painting it almost like you'd mask it off with tape, and then being able to remove it after to show what was under it and not paint that area. So, but I do have a bottle of it, and I've always wanted to try it, but I haven't yet. There we go. Okay. That is the front or the back, however you choose to look at it. And then I'm going to try and get the other side done here as well. Again, you're not really going to see this side, so I wouldn't spend too much time perfecting it, but I just do want it to be a little darker than the rest, so a wash helps to do that. Totally off camera here, folks. I was just relaxing in here. Lost track of the camera. Just mind my business. Paint my cloud giant. I look back and I'm totally off. And I am again. There we go. Now the inside wasn't totally dry yet, so I got some mixture there, but that's okay. The inside's not too worried. I'm not too worried about the inside. I'm just looking at all the comments here. Tivid says, I'm stalling packing for a week for a work trip tomorrow. Just got back into D&D after decades and finding this video super helpful. Someone wants me to run Dragon of Icespire Peak. Oh, just for them, and I'm overwhelmed. At least his tiefling will look nice. It's good. Well, welcome back to the hobby. I came back to D&D after, I hadn't played since my teens, I think. Maybe once or twice I played, but otherwise, yeah, it wasn't, basically since my teens. I hadn't played, came back to it in my 30s. I was at a party with some friends. Some of you have heard this story if you've been fans of RealmSmith for a little while, but I was at a party with some friends, and we were like, hey, you remember D&D? Oh, that was fun. And this was literally like 4 years ago. And I played a lot when I was younger, and in 13, 14, 15 in high school. And they were like, hey, we should play some D&D again. It's been a long time. And it was so much fun, and we started reminiscing about our characters and all this stuff, and so on. And then we started a group. There was 3 people. It was myself and Dale, my buddy Dale, and my buddy Todd. And we started a gaming group, and that's where RealmSmith kind of was born, in my basement at the time. And we met kind of like once or twice a month, started playing, and then more friends came on. We had to move to the backyard, and we had this, like, during the summer we had a gazebo set up with a table in the middle. It was an awesome place to play, torches and lanterns and stuff. And then I built like a tavern room in my garage. We moved to the garage, and I had lights, and I had done the whole thing up kind of to look like a medieval tavern. And then one of my buddies, his name's Joel, who you might know, came to play one time, and he's like, dude, you should live stream this. Like, this room is insane, and it's a lot of fun, and it's really entertaining, and you guys should totally live stream it. And that's where the live streams were born. The sad thing, and I don't mean to put a damper on the evening, but the sad thing is that Todd, who was one of the founders of RealmSmith and started the live stream with us, took his own life last April. And it was a really difficult month, and he actually didn't show up for a session one night, and we didn't know what was going on, and the next day we searched and then found out that he had hung himself. I haven't told that story on this show yet, but just kind of goes to show and prove that life is valuable. You don't know how long those around you will be here. And so if you've been watching the live streams up to a point, you see Todd there, and then you don't see Todd there. That's why we did a bit of a farewell session shortly after his passing, and that was really difficult. But life moves on, and we need to take care of ours. But hug those that are close to you and a little bit tighter, I guess. And D&D was one of those things that really brought us together. And he said that he never missed it because of that reason. He never did. That night was the first time that he just didn't show up. So, anyways, again, didn't mean to put a damper on the evening, but that's just, I always feel like I have to share that. All right, so what I did was I took sepia wash and I took some black wash. I mixed it all together. And then I am washing the base with it. Again, trying not to get onto the clear effects. You don't want to muddy up that beautiful work that we did with the verdigris at the base, but all around it. And you can see that we're using a bit of more of a kind of a warmer tone. The sepia and the black wash mixed really give it a nice contrasting kind of shade and tone to the rest of the mini. I appreciate all your well wishes and stuff, folks, and condolences. Yeah, it is important to share those things, and I know everybody's kind of saying that and echoing that in the chat, but it's important to know that that suicide's real, and mental illness is a very real thing that affects people, and that we need to be aware. You spend, after it happened, of course, you spend the months, weeks and months afterwards kind of doing the woulda, coulda, shouldas in your brain about what you could have done. And frankly, when it comes down to it, it was their decision to do what they did. It's not your fault. And we all need to remember that. And all we could do was make him damn proud moving forward. So, just sad that he's not here to share it with us, And that's the reality of it. Anyways, all right. But he is remembered, and he will be always remembered by us. And we plan to. I built the table that I'm painting on right now, and I plan to build kind of a facade in the studio here that looks like a tavern. We're going to have a shelf in the corner. It's our Todd shelf. His character was named McGill, and so I was gonna build a shelf with his mini and some of the things that he used to build and craft on that shelf, just to kind of remember him. So that's all we can do. And I'm just gonna fan this thing a little bit here. Lego, you're saying questioning why you missed it. What do you? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I wasn't sure if I just wasn't sure if it was in response to a previous comment, or I just want to make sure I didn't miss something. 15 minutes. I don't know if we're going to finish the base. The base is going to take some time to dry. Oh, yeah. Lego saying how you missed the friend's pain till after. It's funny because he, prior to him taking his life, you watched the sessions leading up to it, and you can see this absence of. He had this gregarious laugh and this warmth about him, and he was always so funny at the table and loud, but the weeks leading up to it were very quiet, and you don't notice it as much. And he came to my birthday, which was March 29th, and so the Saturday after my birthday, so that was literally weeks before, maybe a week or two before he took his life. He was at my birthday, and I could tell just he wasn't himself. Just wasn't okay, and so on his way out, he actually left a little early, and I pulled him aside. I was like, man, you are not okay. What can I do? I can tell that you are hurting, man, and is there anything that I can do to help? And he just said, oh, I'm tired from work, and he just kind of chalked it up to life. There's only so much we can do in those situations. All right. It's real, folks. And you know what? It taught me, if anything, it taught me that pay attention to people's pain. And when somebody says they're hurting, it means they probably are. Never take that for granted. All right. I really like the tone on this base because it's kind of similar to her skin, which is cool. I like that. I like how the eyes turned out too. They look pretty good. I think they're all right. And they really stand out, which is what I want. Which is what I was going for. The thing with washes is you want to make sure they're completely dry, because if they don't, as soon as you start to dry brush over it, it'll mix in with the color and it'll just make a royal mess on your mini. So now this one, it looks like only in the deepest recesses is it still wet. So I'm actually gonna tempt my fate, and I'm actually gonna try and dry brush. So I'm gonna go with Glacier Blue, wherever it is. Here it is. We're going to go with Glacier Blue, like we did on the front of the garment as well. And we're going to do a dry brush over that cloak. And again, I'm going to try and stay away from the deepest recesses where it hasn't quite dried yet. This is becoming a bit of a overbrush because it's still a little wet, but I think that's okay. I'm staying away from the really deep, not only the recesses, but like the deep areas. Like in here, I want it to look like there's not a lot of light hitting it because it's really folded and deep. So I just want to watch those not get in there so much. But if you guys are interested in hearing more about Todd and kind of honoring his memory, we have a stream that we filmed. Pretty sure it's on YouTube still. If it's not, remind me and I'll upload it. I know it was on Twitch at the time, or it was on Facebook. It might be on Facebook. Okay, go to our Facebook page because I think we did it on Facebook so that his family could watch. Yeah, I think we did a pretty darn good job of remembering him. We did just a session about him, and kind of most of it was about Todd, the character, the player, the person, the father. He left behind two teenage boys, Aiden and Jude, who are really great boys. Love D&D, and then the end, we did a player farewell where he wrote a letter to our players, or the characters in the game, and it was an incredibly emotional time on the stream, but we were able to say goodbye in the way that we knew how. And anyways, if you're interested in seeing that, I think it's still on our Facebook page. You can check that out. Okay, actually that worked well, even though it was wet a little bit. That actually worked out okay. I'm not going to worry about the inside of the cloak almost at all. I'm just going to do a bit of the edges here for the parts that you do see, but the rest of it, not really caring too much. Then I'm going to dry fit it, see how it looks, and then probably glue it later. There we go. I will be taking a final shot. I tend to do that afterwards, just to kind of let people see what they look like after the fact. I wish you can see, if I were to tilt the camera, you can see with the light coming through those clear effects. It's pretty cool. So you can't really see it, but that turned out all right. I kind of like the shade of the cloak is cool. It's very simple, very, very simple. 10 minutes. What question from Oso? What is the biggest mistake you see new painters make? Ooh. That's a great question. I'm actually trying to think. I think patience is part of it. I think that getting through the base coating is the most kind of arduous part, and new painters tend to lose hope a little bit. Even I do sometimes, because it's just monotonous, and it's the same thing kind of over and over and over again. And so I find that new painters, we're going to move to Stonewall Gray here, folks, for a dry brush on the ground. I find that new painters tend to lose patience in that, and then like, oh, it looks horrible, looks terrible, and it always does in the base coating. It's basically paint by numbers at that stage. So, don't lose hope in the process when you're painting. If it doesn't look great while you're base coating, that's okay. As soon as you add, washes and do some dry brushing, all of a sudden it's really going to pop. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I'd say, another thing that new painters tend to do is they tend to get really nervous about painting. So, they think that they have to get good before they paint their minis. When I first started, I watched so many tutorials. Tutorials were my thing. I watched so many video tutorials and kind of learned from other people doing it and making those mistakes for me, basically. And that was crazy helpful. Yeah, that's looking all right. And that was crazy helpful, like you guys are doing now. But I learned from doing. I don't practice. I never practiced painting. I just picked kind of, if you want to maybe keep like a showcase miniature until maybe later, until you've learned a certain technique or whatever. But I would just do it. Just jump in. That would be my number one kind of tip for new painters, is just go ahead and try things. Don't worry about it. Don't worry too much that you're going to mess anything up, because you won't mess anything up. Your mini is yours to have, and be proud of it. Be proud of the process. Be proud of your progression from a new painter to a more experienced painter. So, anyways, folks, it's been wonderful. I didn't expect to go where we went necessarily in the conversation, but it's funny because painting for me is incredibly therapeutic. I love to sit and do this, and it takes me out of kind of the busyness of the day and the stress of life, and then you can create, and we create things like this that will bring joy, not just to myself doing the actual process of painting, but will bring joy to the players at the table, or sadness, or madness, or anger, or a number of different things, helplessness, but whatever, it will evoke emotion, and that's what this is all about. It's about evoking emotions, and so I appreciate being able to share with you guys. I appreciate you guys sitting through this. I will post pictures of this. The VOD version of this miniature, of this tutorial, will be on the D&D YouTube this week, as well as the RealmSmith YouTube this week. Last week's is still on Twitch. It hasn't been moved to YouTube yet, but stay tuned for that. And if you have any questions, make sure that you comment. Again, follow us on all the socials at RealmSmith TV, on Twitch and YouTube at /RealmSmith. And check out our Kickstarter. 4 days left. We're super excited about it. I may actually run our little video, our Kickstarter ad right now. So for those of you that don't know about the Kickstarter, would like to know more, you guys can check it out at realmsmith.tv/Kickstarter. We're all about unadulterated immersion. We love to get people into the game, make them feel like they're really there, and so that's where we put all of our effort, and making DMing easy, especially for new DMs and people who are really busy. We do all the hard work for you. So here it is. You guys have a wonderful week. Have a good one. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing your stories as well. And next week we'll do something with skin, probably. Okay. I'll see you guys. Oh, and tomorrow night we do not have a live stream. It is a holiday Monday, and so we will not be having the regular scheduled Order of Dragon's Bane. We will continue in a week from tomorrow. Okay. See you guys. Have a good one.
Hi everyone, I'm Joel Auger, and this is
Jason Azevedo.
and we are just two of the partners in a company called RealmSmith who deliver amazing, immersive experiences for your Dungeons & Dragons tabletop gameplay every single month.
Every month.
Every month.
Like all 12.
All year long. So you might ask why we would kickstart this whole thing.
In its current state, RealmSmith has been operating for, a year and a half, basically doing what we love to do and offering these boxes and shipping these boxes out. And we've learned a lot of lessons. But we've basically gone as far as we can on our own and with the resources that we've had up to this point. We want to take this to the next level. We want to make it better. We want it to make it the best that it could possibly be.
We really do want more people to find out about what we're doing, and Kickstarter obviously is a central place for a whole bunch of gamers. Yeah. We've seen countless tabletop games come to fruition through Kickstarter, a bunch of D&D based projects come to life. This is our first ever Kickstarter, and we're super pumped about being part of that community. In addition to that, we really believe that we're breaking Kickstarter with this new packaging campaign.
What we've been doing for the last year and a half is mailing out an adventure box. Basically what that is it's a series of 6 boxes within an adventure that carry along a campaign throughout all of it. They're shipped in this black mailer here that you see, and it includes everything that you see at the table here. Over the last year and a half, we've built some relationships with some awesome partners, and we'll show you some of the products from those partners that we have in each of our boxes. The first is the Fat Dragon Games Papercraft. Basically, we have the Shattered Shield Tavern here that the first module takes place in. We have some WizKids minis, of course. We've got Kale, the bartender here. That is actually a Reaper mini. WizKids minis, we have a Dancing Girl. We have Violet, the maid who plays a huge part in the first module, no spoilers. We also have scented candles. This is the Blazing Hearth candle. We actually create these here in Toronto with a local artisan. And this smells like a fireplace. We have the Shattered Shield Tavern mug, which is part of the actual first module that you give to your players as part of the story. Every box comes with a module that we've written, which actually has cues of when to light the candle and when to play certain sound sets and moods and sounds from our Sirenscape custom sound sets that we've put together, as well as a hand-drawn map of the Shattered Shield Tavern. Our idea for these modules is pick up and play. The purpose of our boxes is to allow the DM who's busy, who has a life, who has children, who has a family, to literally sit down and play as quickly as possible with as little barrier to entry as possible.
So beautiful. So with that, we should introduce our new boxes.
The components were right. They had all of the
when we cast
stuff.
The spell last time.
Yes.
We had the motion different than we did this time. The new boxes. We kind of did the whole like whoosh, and then it happened.
Is that the somatic?
It's the somatic. It's the
whoosh. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Here we go. Oh, here we go. It worked. Whew. All right. Well, this is it. We wanted to give as much value as we possibly could into our boxes. And we decided by looking outside of the box to create this brand new mailer that we can mail all of our boxes in each month. And as you open it up, what you'll see is within our prototype, there is actually a DM screen
inside the box.
It's in the box.
Crazy, right? And so what you do is you cut it all out, and all these areas will be punchable, and you will punch it all out, and it will turn into exactly what you see in front of you here. It's a full DM screen with a bunch of tables that we like to use at our games. It's D&D 5e compatible. It's got an initiative tracker up top with these little markers that you can write your PC names in. There are markers for NPCs. There are markers for monsters if you want as well. And then there's this really cool, nifty, as it were, dice tower right in the middle of it. So you can roll your dice through it or whatever you want to do. There's also punch-out condition markers as well as initiative coins and things like that. So that is actually the value that we've added into the box every single month. As part of our initial goal, we want to make sure that we provide this DM screen. This is just a prototype. Of course, we want to be able to print it and tool it and offer it to monthly subscribers starting actually in January 2020. That we need a fulfillment partner. Currently, it's being done out of Tim's garage, as we talked about. And his wife isn't too happy about that. So we want to make sure that we're actually shipping on time through a fulfillment partner so that we're not doing it ourselves and we're able to focus on creating better content for all of you out there as well. In addition to our initial goal, which will bring us the DM screen upgrade and upgrading the items that are in the box, we have a bunch of really awesome stretch goals with the design and desire to actually bring the community together. And so check out our stretch goals. And then with the rewards, we have some crazy rewards. And our logistics manager, Tim, is going to kill us, really. But
we weren't supposed to do this.
We weren't, but we are because it's so cool and we're all about immersion. So please check those out. And they're in the same kind of vein as everything that we do at RealmSmith.